Welcome to the Growquire show, where we talk about how to grow and acquire. I'm very excited for our guest who's joining the show today, Reetu Gupta. Reetu is a trailblazing entrepreneur, investor, and visionary leader who proudly joins the ownership group of the Toronto Tempo. As the CEO of the Gupta Group, she has shattered barriers in the traditionally male-dominated worlds of real estate, hospitality, and investment, all while championing the power of feminine energy and leadership. A passionate advocate for women's empowerment and education, Reetu's philanthropy through the Gupta Family Foundation and her work on the board of the Princess Margaret Cancer Foundation reflect her lifelong mission to create meaningful impact. Known as the Ambassadress, she continues to redefine success through compassion, purpose, and legacy. Reetu, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm thrilled that you could join us. This is so great, perfect that we could connect like this. Today's discussion, I really want to break it into 4 different segments. First, let's talk a little bit about family legacy. Second, I want to talk about Toronto Tempo. Third, let's talk a little bit about, the soul and mysticism, if you will, metaphysics, how we exercise the law of attraction to harness success in our business ventures. And then fourth, I really want to talk about the pain line, building that tolerance for handling discomfort when we face complex business challenges. And last, I'm going to end with a personal question. You ready?
Ready? Let's go.
Awesome. I love it. So, you have been part of your family's business since you were a young child. So why don't you tell our listeners and our watchers a little bit about your story?
Sure. So my journey started when I was in elementary school. And every time, literally, my parents would pick us up from school. And on the way home, they would tell us tomorrow morning, us meaning myself and my siblings, and they would tell us tomorrow morning, you're going to the office. And we basically didn't have kind of summers off in the traditional way that most young kids would have. We would be at the office. So for me, when I was very young, I was answering phones, I was filing. I was just honestly, Jennifer, I was on a trajectory that I didn't really realize I was even on. So I was learning all of these different things and learning about the back office, and eventually my role started to grow. So as the summers went on and as I got older, I started doing more accounting, invoicing. At this time it was the 80s. So we had apartment buildings. So I was in charge of rent rolls when I was really, really young and, understanding who's paying rent and what does that even mean. And it was such an interesting journey. And so from there, I love hotels, and hotels is just something that I'm so passionate about, and I feel very blessed to be in this industry. So as I worked, I was first at the head office, worked there until so many summers until high school. Then I moved to one of our properties, and I had so much fun. So over the summers in high school, I was doing front desk, I was doing sales, I shadowed the GM, and so that's kind of where it started to where I am now. So I did my BBA at UTSC. I came back to work, did my MBA at the Schulich School of Business, came back to work, and my roles sort of just expanded. I was director of sales and then vice president of sales and marketing, executive director, COO, CEO, and to where I am now, which is the ambassadress of the company.
I don't know a lot of people that can say they were managing an apartment building rent roll when they were still in grade
I
school.
know it's so bad. I feel like I shouldn't say that publicly, but that's exactly what I was doing. I was probably, I don't even know, Jen, if I was 13. I was doing
I
managing.
love it.
It was just admin, right? It was just admin, but it was just, yeah, I was really young.
I love that. That's great. Your dad did a great job including you all along the way through growing up and really getting you involved in the business from a young age. So that's fantastic. So when you really started getting more and more involved as the years went on and your responsibilities grew, how did you then decide, hey dad, we should get into condo development. We should try new things. What is the decision-making process that goes into reviewing the portfolio as a family and deciding to take that leap into new asset classes that you haven't explored before?
It's so interesting. So we started that leap, as you say, in 2012. And we had a site that was King Street and Blue Jays Way, King and Blue Jays Way. And my dad and I loved this site. And we both felt this could be a hotel, but we both knew that that area was starving. At that time, it was 2012. That area was just starving for condos. So we looked at it, and I was really pushing my dad, to be honest, and telling him that I feel like we could do condos, because as much as it is a completely different asset class, to your point, for the way that I looked at it is, with our hotels, people are living with us for a night, 2 nights, 3 nights, sometimes 30 nights. So now we're basically just building something that's permanent for them to live in. And for me, the hospitality aspect was still the same. So it didn't feel that different. Asset class, yes. Business, yes, completely different. But for us, it just felt like a very natural shift. And so, and that's, I'll never forget where I was that day when I called my dad and I said, Dad, I think we need to do condos. And he's silent on the other end of the phone. He just says, okay. And he kind of says, you know what? I think we can make this work. And I was at our hotel, 92 Peachtree. I was looking out the window and just telling him that I'm telling you, we can do condos here. And it was just such a beautiful start to the journey. Whereas now, we have quite a few condo developments. And it was just, I have to say, there was also a lot of trust that my dad heard what I said. I'm not saying we don't argue, because we argue, but he also has a lot of trust when I come to him with new ideas.
I love that. It's extremely special. We've had the opportunity to talk about it before, but he really seeks your opinion on different decisions, especially as it relates to acquiring and diversifying. So that's extremely special, that quality that he has, that willingness to listen.
It is 100%, because I see a lot in family business where it's not always like that, right? So whoever is the head of the family business, whichever parent it is, they're not usually open to their kids' opinions. And I see that all the time.
Yeah. But, also in family businesses, we don't always see that next generation take a keen interest like you have. You've taken more than a keen interest. You've taken a trailblazing keen interest in growing the family's business and portfolio and diversifying. So condos call them hotel adjacent.
Right.
I want to talk about the next segment of today's show, which is really your investment into the inaugural WNBA Canadian team, the Toronto Tempo. And I literally have goosebumps as I say that out loud. So that's an entirely new arena for you, literally and metaphorically. How did that opportunity first come across your desk?
This came across my desk last year. I'm not sure how much I can divulge here, but it came across my desk and I was notified that this team was coming and they were looking at female investors and they wanted me to invest. And so right away I was jumping and I just thought, okay, this is definitely, obviously women's sports, everybody knows that it's getting a lot more exposure, but it's not, I think what really was driving me was that the talent was always there. The passion was always there. The only thing that women's sports had lacked was investment. It was exposure. It was viewership. And I just felt like this was the brink of something huge. And I was so excited. So it was a rigorous process. And now to be here to say that I've always been someone, I've worked in a male-dominated industry my whole life. And so I've always worked to try to inspire other women and to make sure that other women have equal opportunity. So for something like this, it was, although it's not hotels and it's not condos, it's just so much of what I'm passionate about and what I believe in.
It's insane. It really is. It's incredible. It's insane in the best way. I was thrilled when I saw the announcement pop up on LinkedIn. I thought, oh my gosh, this is a good day for women everywhere, right? You can't only just carve out a spot in real estate, hospitality, but to carve out a spot in sports ownership is significant. So hats off to you, my friend. That's huge. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's very exciting. Very, very exciting.
What was the family's reaction when you said, hey guys, I know we haven't done this before, but what do you think about this investment opportunity in sports?
So I laugh because when I brought this up, nobody was surprised. Honestly, I love my family. Nobody said, Reetu, are you sure? Is this something you want to do? I just said, I'm going to invest in this and this is something I'm looking at. And they all just kind of said, yeah, it sounds exactly like you. And it wasn't even a shock. Honestly, my dad and my brother were instrumental in helping this happen. And they said, okay, what do you need? Let's do the data analysis. Let's look at everything. So they were so supportive, so supportive.
You just said two important words. I want to dig in a little deeper here. You said data analysis.
Mhm.
So, you've got a team obviously that helps you on due diligence when you're reviewing real estate
Yep.
opportunities. What team did you access? Did you have to find new experts to help you underwrite the opportunity and get that data done for you?
For WNBA specifically?
Yes.
You know what? No. So the way that I look at it is, and the way that I look at any business model is, in the end of the day, business is business and it's all the same. So the way that you analyze it, yes, you might have to look at different key factors, right? If it's a hotel versus the WNBA. But when you look at a financial analysis, it's all the same because at the end of the day, you're looking at, is it going to be profitable? Does it make sense? Is there an ROI? So the way that I look at business is that every business is the same. It just matters on the lens that you're looking at it from. So we used our in-house team and they're amazing. And to be honest, Jen, for this, we all know that this, yes, is it going to be a great investment? I firmly believe it's going to be a great investment. But further to this, it was more so just about supporting Toronto and supporting this team and bringing more viewership, bringing more exposure to the WNBA and to these amazingly talented women.
Yes. It's really about playing the music in your heart via investment,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And speaking of that, speaking of your heart, like all of these segments in today's discussion are directly tied to each other. But you are now a published author of two books, Auspicious, Whispers of the Soul. And in your books, you talk a lot about self-affirmation, daily affirmation, the energy that you're channeling, consciousness, and listening to your heart very carefully on a daily basis. And I love how you go into tactical detail and break that down for the reader on how you're doing that. So when did this first interest you? When did it become really clear to you how important these topics are?
I would say I was born a very weird kid. I was always this spiritual, believing in something bigger, obviously huge faith in God, faith in the universe. I have honestly always been this way. I know a lot of people will say they went through something and it was a turning point and that suddenly changed the way they look at life. But for me, honestly, Jen, I was really honestly born this way. Before I knew how to write, I remember sitting at home and I had this little notebook and I had all of these thoughts in my head and I always wanted to write a book, but I didn't know how to write. So I would just think and scribble and it felt like I was getting my thoughts out onto paper. So I feel like it's just one of those things where I've always felt the need to speak my heart. My friends and my loved ones know I love to write. So I'll always write handwritten cards and notes and letters just because I feel like it's so important to express what's in your heart.
Absolutely. And, how are you using this on a daily basis as you start your day? Like, let's just talk about the process of starting your day and getting in the right energy, getting in the right space within yourself. And that's going to be tied to all of your meetings and decisions and ventures throughout your day. So, can you tell us how you start your day?
Absolutely. So I start my day somewhat the same every single day. I'm a person of, I would say, habit and discipline for sure. So maybe it would come across as boring. That's fine. This is just how I live my life. I start my day the same every single day. And so I'll always start with meditation. I get up between 5 and 5:30, and I love to meditate when it feels like the world is asleep. So when I sit in meditation, sometimes maybe I'll give myself some affirmations, but it's more so just about connecting to the universe and giving my mind that time to just be calm and be relaxed. Because once your day starts, as you know, you have a million things that are coming at you. There's a million things you need to do. And if your mind isn't trained on how to relax, it's very difficult to deal with any scenario. And I have found, Jen, that throughout my years, I've been meditating for so many years that I can see the difference. So when I'm at work and if there's some sort of conflict or a scenario where people are kind of panicking, I can see really clearly and really calmly. And I know it's because I meditate. It's because I give myself that time in the morning to just sit and be silent and just let the universe kind of speak to me. This is also, so the people that know me really well, a lot of times, Jen, even with business decisions, they'll say, okay, Reetu, we want to do X, Y, and Z. And I will always say to them, it doesn't matter what their belief is, but I will be very open and say, I'm not making a decision until I meditate on this. And now it's just sort of I know it's just a known thing that I can't give you a yes or a no because I need to meditate and understand what is it that I'm supposed to do. So that is how I start my day every day. Then I'll go to the gym, and then I'll actually kind of get into the workday.
I love that. I love that you're sharing that level of detail, that you tell your team, I have to meditate about this before I can get back to you. You know, a lot of people are processors, right? And for me as well, I like to just sleep on it. So you have a very in-depth version of, I don't sleep on it. I'm going to meditate about it and open up my consciousness and really do a deep dive before I come back with my
Yes.
thoughts and proposed decision to move forward. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. So, one of my favorite topics, we're going into the next segment here, is really about what we call the pain line, and this ability and tolerance to manage discomfort and push through discomfort, not to be avoidant. But as we grow our portfolios, and especially your family is very diversified, as we grow our portfolios and into different asset classes, sometimes the business challenges get really complicated, complex, and
Mhm.
new, especially if we're heading into new ventures. How have you built up your own personal tolerance and personal pain line to exercise that muscle over time?
I think it depends on what kind of pain you're looking at, right? Because pain sounds like a very negative word. And I think when you're looking at investments, for example, are there ups and downs? Of course, real estate especially, right? It goes up and it goes down. But I think I wouldn't say that you have to tolerate pain, because that, to me, that kind of comes across as, okay, well, you can do what you love, but you're going to be in so much pain. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that with with anything that you do, there's always going to be learning curves. There's always going to be challenges, but those are also opportunities to grow. It's opportunities to transform. And sometimes, COVID, for an example, it really, for us being in hospitality, it was such a challenge. And it also was an opportunity to understand, okay, so when we do have guests, what do they need? What do they want? And now we have to adapt really quickly. So I would say that it's not necessarily about tolerating pain per se, but it's more so about how you look at it. It's the lens that you look at it. So can you look at it, instead of saying, okay, this investment is going to bring me a lot of pain, can you look at it and say, okay, what am I meant to learn from this? And is there something that I can look at this investment or this project or this opportunity, and is there something that I can do so I can transform myself? So I'm not necessarily in pain, but I'm allowing myself to grow.
You know, that's a great way of framing it. It really is. Do you have a panic moment ever? You know, do you have any kind of situation come across your desk where you're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do in this situation? Or are you just constantly coming back to that centering exercise that you're doing to start your day each morning?
You know what? If I can be honest, in the hotel business, you'll have the craziest things happen. So that happens. I don't even want to give you examples, because the things that we deal with on the hotel side is insane. And I think that after a period of time, to your point, you tolerate, you kind of, your level of what's normal, it shifts over time. But I would say that, is it that I'm always calm? No, of course I have my days and I have my moments, and I have, sometimes I'll look at things, the amount of times, Jen, that I've been so upset or emotional, and I'll call both my parents and I'll just say, I need to talk to both of you right now. We have a situation. And they would be the ones to calm me down. But I think that usually, that, to be honest, that moment of emotion, whatever that emotion is, it's usually short lived. And also kind of out of necessity, because in my family, I'm also the one that's usually calm. So if I freak out, if I spiral, get out of control, it's
Oh,
not,
watch out.
yeah, it's not a, I can't. I don't have that ability. So I do have my moments, but I also will always, once I see that I'm, freaking out and panicking, then I will bring myself back to, okay, you've had your moment. Now let's figure out what's the answer, what's the solution here.
Yeah, that's very funny. You know, you said, oh, I don't even want to give you examples. I can think of my own examples that I've lived through and seen too, being a landlord on a much smaller scale. And
And
really, when you have a business and you're dealing with people, crazy things can happen, and crazy things can happen every day, right? So, anyway, it is a skill, a special skill, to start anticipating. I'm just going to expect the unexpected. You know, anything can happen.
yeah,
Business is going to go on. We're going to keep operating and deliver the best world-class hospitality experience that we can.
yes, exactly,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Well, I want to end the show today on a personal note. I like to ask all of my guests this same closing question.
Okay.
And that is, in a few words, up until this point in time, what have been the highlights of your life?
The highlights of my life,
Yes.
in a few words only.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful question. And I would say for anyone, and especially for me, anything in my life that I would consider a highlight would be anything that I did with love, would be anything that feels like it was kind of surrounded by love. And I'm very blessed that I have a beautiful family around me. Everything we do, we always make sure that we support one another, that we're very loving with one another. So I feel like anything that I look at in my life that's would be considered a highlight would be anything that I also put my soul and my heart into.
I feel like that's everything you touch.
I hope so. I try.
Right? Like, yeah, I love following you on Instagram. I follow all of your posts because I like the energy you're putting out when you're posting, right? But it's really clearly in your written books, in your work, across your team, and it's clearly shown. Your love is clearly shown. So
Thank you so much. Thank you. So that means so much. That's really what I try to do is put more love out into the world.
it's shown for sure. Well, thank you so much for coming on today's show. It means a lot to me, and I know it's going to mean a lot to our viewers, especially women everywhere, right? It's no joke. You serve as a spectacular example of someone who has grown a family portfolio over time and gone into asset classes that are brand new and not be afraid to step into new places and new arenas. So congratulations to you.
Thank you so, so, so much. This was such a pleasure to talk to you today.
All right. Thanks, Reetu.
Thank you.
Wow, that's all I can say is wow. It was such a thrill to have the opportunity to speak with Reetu today and to hear her insights on her business portfolio, how she starts her day, how she goes forward through difficult challenges, and what some of the highlights of her life have been. So thank you, Reetu, for coming on the Growquire show. We'll see you all next time.